Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going down a freaking rabbit hole today. And I'm excited about this one. I'm not even going to lie. Now, the one thing that I'm going to start off with saying is thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new to the podcast, please like, share, subscribe, download. The mission is to get this out to as many people as possible to serve their own purpose and whatever is unique to them and bring that to fruition. Today, I'm going to be talking about how important it is to harness the power of nature. And this is what I mean by that. If you look at a lot of the stuff that we go by today and for a long time, there's a pattern. I always talk about patterns. I always talk about sequences on here, functions and stuff like that. And there's a reason why. It's very, very, very important. Like the very first thing that I would like to say in regards to this whole entire process is understanding that every single year consists of 12 months. And then within those 12 months, there's 4 seasons, which breaks down to automatically, what is it, 3 months per season? And people use that for so many different things to set up their businesses, quarterly functions, like so many things off of just that one understanding of a pattern that's not going to change no time soon, if it will ever change. I don't think it'll ever change. I don't know nothing about nothing, but at the same time, I do have a a basic understanding of how basic things work. You know what I mean? Like for example, we all know, how many days it takes us to, go around the sun. 365 days. Now, the only reason why I'm saying this stuff, you guys gonna have to follow me here. Like I said, we're gonna go down a freaking rabbit hole today. But the only reason why I say this stuff is to understand, for you guys to understand that if you apply these same exact things to the life that you're living, you'll be unstoppable. Now, what led me to even going down this is I'm putting together a video of Nikola Tesla and like a little documentary just following his life and how he came about doing what he doing. If you guys haven't seen the first video I put out, I already pretty much mentioned it in the previous podcast, is the one that I made of Kobe Bryant and his purpose through basketball. Now with Nikola Tesla, this is somebody that's been, I would want to say, a huge inspiration to me for like the last, I want to say 5-6 years going on now. And the only reason of that is his obsession to harness electricity, which he was inspired by through, he thought that it was all, the stars was aligned for him. Like he was born on like a crazy thunderstorm, and that's when it was just like, you know what, he felt as though when the way he came into the world that it was destined for him to learn how to harness the power of electricity and to help civilization move on through harnessing this power. And at this time, we talking Jesus Christ, but the late like 1800s. This man was like talking about using wireless connections, and at the time, I don't want to go into too much detail. That's what the video was going to be about, but he was snaked ultimately by Thomas Edison, who was using this thing called direct currents at the time to run his electricity. And here comes this Nikola Tesla guy, fresh from Europe, landed in New York City with literally 4 cents in his pocket. And he had a couple of math equations and then like some ideas for a flying machine and a recommendation letter for Thomas Edison. But quickly from working with him, he's seen that the issues of the way Thomas Edison was doing things in the form of how he was harnessing electricity himself by using direct currents, and he decided to. Well, at the time, Nikola Tesla invented, I believe it was called like an AC motor or something like that, or alternative current generator or whatever, but it didn't take as much power as it did like a direct current, and way less. It was way less cheaper to produce that form of power than the way Thomas Edison was doing it. But Nikola Tesla was a man that was obsessed with numbers. He was obsessed with the numbers 3, 6, and 9 specifically. Like this fool will walk around the block 3 times before he had enter in a building. Will only stay in numbers that was hotel rooms that was numbers that was divisible by like 3. But all in all, through the things that he invented and what he did, it literally pushed society to a lot of things that we see today and that we even use today. You know, this was a man who knew his stuff. He studied science. He studied math. Like that was his thing, to become a mathematician or mathematical engineer or electric engineer or a science engineer. I don't know what I'm freaking saying right now, but that was his primary focus. That's where his obsession was at. But through him looking at, the laws of nature, something that's unbreakable, something that we can't change, that we're a part of, that we're made out of, he chose to harness that power and do something with it to create something. And it's a whole process, like I said, through looking at these people's lives, and sometimes looking at my life, and sometimes looking at my life, and you can see that there's patterns every single day. And if you even start by noticing, if you watch the last podcast, if y'all seen the last podcast, listen to it or whatever, you will understand how this would all make sense when I talked about on the last one, awareness and self-awareness. Like having an awareness, knowing that every single day the sun comes up and then the sun goes down. That happens every single day. Knowing that, at some given point every day you're going to go to sleep, and then at some point in the day you're going to wake up, hopefully when the sun comes up or whatever after you're done sleeping, and there's a natural order that follows things, and when you even break things down like to like everyday stuff, like when people say laws are unbreakable, but when you do break them, there's a serious consequence for not following the order of how, like, for example, laws is made for order within society, so it won't be chaos. Like, for example, if you think about if the solar system didn't follow its order, and Mars decided, yo, I'm gonna go my own way, I don't really care, Earth decided to do the same thing, we wouldn't be here. I'm pretty sure a lot of living things wouldn't be here. I'm almost certain of that. But my whole point with all of this is to show that there's a necessary process that everything goes through, and a lot of times it involves ascending and descending. If we're about to really go down this rabbit hole, we're about to get spiritual, in a sense, and the whole goal for life is pretty much, I believe, is enlightenment and understanding what you are in the totality of, like, the whole. The sun is a part of the whole. This earth is a part of the whole, and the way that everything's structured, if it does its necessary part and do what it got to do, it makes the whole entire process sustainable and manageable. A couple of podcasts ago, I can't even remember, but I even talked about even as something as simple as how a supermarket works, where food need to be on the shelves in order for a supermarket to be a supermarket. But people take stuff off the shelves all the time. That's the purpose of it being out there so people can consume it. And at the same time, there's always behind the scenes for that product to get to the shelves. And that's a lot of the times how the law of nature works, you know what I mean? And going back to the 12 months and this whole entire year, and even breaking down the year, since we pretty much a third of the way in of this rabbit hole. But if you start from January and then work your way through the year, life is coming from, I'll say, from the Western standpoint. I'm in the USA, New Jersey, but in January, life is like dead. It's kind of like recovering. It's recovering from like a harsh winter. It's in the middle of a harsh winter, but then after that is followed by, spring. And spring is life coming about. And then in the summertime, life is thriving. But then once September roll around, that's like the introduction to death, and in retrospect, not even retrospect, and just looking at the totality of everything, even if you think about the sun's power, it's strongest when it's in the middle of the year, and it's kind of, I want to say, at its weakest point, at the beginning and the end of the year, which is followed by, kind of the same time. Because like I said, when January rolls around, life is just starting to cook up again, and try to work its way out of a bad situation. And you can see these things in literally trees. If you look at trees, not all trees, but majority of trees in the wintertime, depending on where you are, that the leaves and everything about the tree just starts to die off, but not the tree itself. The tree itself is just like, this is another analogy that I use probably for the umpteenth time on this podcast, but just how looking at a tree, you can see how, that just goes, and even with the sun going up and down every single day, it's followed by a certain order. It's followed by a certain pattern. And you got people since like pretty much the beginning of time try to harness that. Like, I want to know what fool decided that it was a good idea to make a will. What inspired that human or that first group of humans to make a will? That's like drawing, but it's such a genius idea. Think about the genius within a circle. Now we're going to keep going down. Like I said, this rabbit hole. At this point, I'm pretty sure y'all following me somewhat, but just keep following me. But looking at a wheel, looking at what else has like circles. This microphone, actually, if you're looking at it from like right here, bowls, looking at it from a circle, but a circle is such a unique shape, and it's a telltale sign, and it's also through the shape in itself is telling a story. The starting point and the end point being one and the same. And think about how our planets are shaped. If you think about the direction that it goes in, it's not really a circle, but it's a path like that, but through those paths, like I said, it tells a story, and people put those stories in numbers. People put those stories like in language, and that's how we're even able to communicate with each other is by harnessing the power of nature and the laws of nature. And if you do this with yourself, most importantly, you'll be able to connect with nature so much better, you know. And often people that make a pivotal change in regards to shaping reality different, they really harness the power of nature and they're very fascinated and they're extremely obsessed with how the way things simply work. And I would want to say I'm one of those people. It's definitely it gets my mind going, you know. Oftentimes we we limit ourselves and we forget the true power and the nature of ourselves. Like, I don't normally bring religion and all that kind of stuff in here because that's like crossing a line I simply don't want to cross. I'm not even going to lie. And I say this all the time. We're talking about, certain things. It's just always keeping it pertaining to the matter of what can you do as a form and expression to push society forward. That's like the biggest mission, and I try to take so many different angles and sides for you to understand that, and everyone that's listening to understand that. But harnessing this power is, I believe, our sole mission. And it's just crazy to like really think, this is a line that, like I said, I don't really like going down with like religion and everything due to the fact that is touching on people's like deeply personal beliefs and the way they live life. But I think that the the power and, like, God, the light that people often refer to, you know, that gives them clarity. This is another thing that I believe is a representation of nature and the way that people perceive nature and how that information got passed down through generations and over time. Like, it's so many countless examples, you can literally just look around and see that personally for yourself. But if you are unaware to it, you can never ever see this. And this is a huge deal. And when I personally was unaware to a lot of these things, I seen a limited version of myself. I felt as though I didn't have no self control over my thoughts and my actions. And I felt as though that I was wronged in a lot of situations. Like, people did me dirty. And just to be flat out, the word is, like, playing victim. Just playing victim all the time. And giving myself pity parties every time something went wrong and justifying it going wrong and feeding into that limited belief system that I built up in myself instead of stopping, collecting inventory on why I feel like that and what caused me to feel like that and what caused this situation, whether it was in my control or whether it wasn't in my control. This started leading me down that path, you know. And I always say that basketball was the compass for me. It was the compass for me to go down this rabbit hole and start exploring parts of myself that I didn't know was there. This is about to be, it's about to sound stupid, but think about if you did not know a camera was used to take pictures and make videos. How would you use it? You can't. You can't use it correctly. You're gonna have to make up and find some way of how to use the function not even just use the camera, but not how it functions properly. And on a given basis, think about, are you doing that with your mind? Are you doing that with your body? Are you really knowing what the function of who you are is and how to operate that? And as in regards to integrating that with nature, and that's very, very important. And we're made out of the fabric of nature, at the core essence of everything. You know what I mean? Even in how we're created through sex and just boiling it down to a sperm connecting with the egg. It's even deeper science under that. Now, that's not a freaking rabbit hole that I'm trying to go down today, to be quite honest. But all in all, when you become aware of all of these things, you are revealing yourself to the world, and you're ultimately revealing the world to yourself in that same process. And going back to like the limited beliefs and victim, when keep it 100. When was the last time y'all had a pity party for yourselves? Was it today? Was it right before you listen to this podcast? Was it in the morning? Was it at night? Where Let me give an example for this. Like, for example, when I was in college and I would get my grades back and I would see my grades, and it's just like damn, I'm failing every single class. Instead of understanding what the problem was and how I got there and to fix it, I had a pity party for myself. And I'm like, man, school is stupid as hell. Or like, man, I don't even want to be here in the first place. Like, what's the point of all of this? And then that would turn to like, I don't I'm not gonna pass school. Like, what's the point in even me going? I'm gonna fail ultimately in the long run. And thinking like that caused me to be extremely toxic to myself, and then I like blatantly got toxic with myself, and that will lead to things like, you know, me drinking just to like forget about it and ultimately go numb, so I won't feel a lot of the things that I was going through. And for some people, what I just said probably hit home OD, and because you can relate to that through different avenues, whether it be like I always mention, some of the vices through drinking, sex, pleasure eating. It's so many different things. Binge watching TV is so many different avenues that slither and creep up on you. But this stuff is real, And while all of these distractions are going on that you're letting in through thinking of yourself in a limited way, that natural order is still going on. 12 months still gonna go by. That year still gonna go by. Those 4 seasons is still gonna go by. The leaves is gonna fall. Then the leaves is gonna grow right back again. The leaves, like the tree, ain't gonna be like, oh man, I lost leaves. I ain't never getting them back again. What's the point? I don't even feel like being a tree no more. I wish I was like a blade of grass. That's easier. Now, yeah, granted, that sounds stupid, but think about that. That's how we operate and that's how we move. And on a real spiritual aspect, we're no different from, trees. Of course, we're not trees, but we got the same fabric and we got the same objective, and that's contributing to the whole, to push it forward, just keep pushing it forward and have everything follow that law accordingly. I don't know what the grand scheme of things are. Like I said, it's just my personal beliefs that sometimes I be spewing out there, but a lot of it, my subjective truth, comes from the objective truth. And people always say men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And like I go all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, where understanding patterns and all of this stuff, you have to be keenly aware to it all. And just to give y'all an update with purpose served as I always do, I'm now updating the website. It's been a lot on my plate to get things going, but please check out the website. Go to the PS community. I haven't really seen y'all on there, man. Look out for the kid. I'm trying to help y'all out. You know what I mean? Help me help y'all. But focusing on that emotional, mental, and social, and now included is financial well-being. That going through that whole entire process, I believe that from beginning to end, that's you're gonna understand how you feel, how to do something about how you feel, come up with a plan, and then execute that plan to integrate your purpose into the world. And I break it down in the matter of this. I believe that the first step to understanding your purpose, especially for those of you who believe that you don't have one or that you're looking for it, the biggest thing first and foremost to understand is don't look too hard. You are, like I said, you are it. It is you. It won't separate from you. It's not going anywhere. But you need to be prepared, and you have to know how to harness and use that power that's been granted and bestowed upon you. And nobody can't take that away. But if you don't know how to use it, just like the camera analogy, what's the point of you even having it? You ever seen somebody that have something and you see them waste it, like food or money, anything? You like, yo, man, if I had would have had that, this would have been the intentions behind it and stuff like that. But we don't even honestly know how to do that with our own selves. Like I said, we're simply just controlling our body. I believe that self mastery is the key to unlocking all your dreams and your aspirations. Self mastery, gaining the ultimate control over yourself. And I'm in the middle of that right now. Luckily, I'm winning. I'm winning. You know what I'm saying? But harnessing these things and going back, I was about to go down another railroad track, but just to stay on track, I have the first one being, like I said, and the most important thing is feel. You have to feel your purpose. You have to know how you feel in retrospect to everything that's going on around you. And then once you able to grasp that and understand that, I believe that the next one is focusing on your mental well-being in retrospect of the feelings that you experience in those 24 hours when the sun goes up and down, following that order and that pattern of things. And then from there, when you start to get a hold and practice mental well-being, you start to know what you are and who you are, basically passing that step from how you feel, which is going to start to give you signs of what your purpose is, not what it's going to be, what it was, but in its present moment. Like, I preach this all the time that right now is the most important time more than ever. And then focus on that, you can create a plan for yourself and start to have a vision that you see for yourself and start to change that limited belief that keeps you shackled down and ultimately sometimes that feeling that makes you not even want to get out of bed in the morning, focusing on that and your mental well-being while still not forgetting um, your emotional well-being. You get to improve your purpose. So you go from feel your purpose to improve your purpose. And the next one, which this is of course, like I said, my personal belief, my subjective truth is that financial well-being is the next thing. And for me, that's manage your purpose, knowing when and where your money's coming from, because a lot of our stress comes from that one thing. But through money, numbers, it shows you your behavior through those numbers, from what stores you go to, where you spend, what you spend online. It just shows you where your mind and your body's at, even at a certain time period, even during a day, which you can keep track of yet again all 4 seasons throughout the whole entire year. You know, the 3 month cycle to from transition from season to season. But it depends how much you want to break the stuff down. But that's manage your purpose, which I believe that's a very, very essential thing to start to understand and give yourself a reality check on how to go about your purpose, how to live your purpose, and from a financial aspect. And then last but not least, is your social well-being. And for me, I say that's expose your purpose. Integrate your purpose to the world, put yourself out there, and that stops a lot of people dead in their tracks. Exposing yourself, to the world, that's scary. That ultimately stops people from jumping off the cliff into freedom, and it keeps you held back. It causes procrastination. It causes so many things. But once you know how to integrate that and align your purpose with exposing your purpose, um, a lot of things open up in your world with opportunities, the people that you meet, circumstances changing. Um, and this is a process of preparation. And going back to a tree follows that order of preparation. And to have this thing come in the shape of a full circle in January, you would think that the leaves are down and out and they don't got no fight in them, but they're preparing on its last leg to fight, because that's all a tree know. It knows its function. It knows that it's going to get up and it's going to, show some grit through the wintertime when it's real hard for life to thrive. And that's going from what, December into March, I believe. Yeah, I think so. December 21st to March 21st. Hmm. But yeah, and you guys have to start paying attention to this stuff. Do your research too. If you think I'm capping and you think I'm gassing, try to pull my card. Please try to pull my card, people. Ultimately, I want y'all to remember these 4 things in this specific order: fill your purpose, improve your purpose, manage your purpose, and expose your purpose. And you can even break that down just like the 4 seasons and the whole entire year, and how that gets broken down, you know. And to break it down to even a simple science, in order for the seasons to go by the way that it does, the sun has to go up and down and travel that path. The earth has to rotate the way that it does, and it has to consistently do this. You know, like I said, change is immediate. That's the easiest thing. Consistency is very, very difficult. But the benefits that come from consistency is, you know, a thriving life, and a lot of people that have very successful behaviors, they are very disciplined and they follow distinct patterns. It's all across the board. But all in all, I hope y'all enjoyed this rabbit hole that I sent y'all today with, understanding a little bit about, spirituality and how that coincides into actual facts and the laws of nature. And don't forget this. Y'all are very important, and y'all are made up of literally every single thing that is created and is pushed to keep life going the way it is. Understand that, harness that, and use that to the best of your ability. And don't accept that limited version of yourself. It's no good. Kick that shit to the curb, man. We hype again. We hype. Come on, serve your purpose.